So welcome everyone to our webinar and our discussion, Overcoming the Top Sales Challenges when Moving to Microsoft Dynamics 365 BC SaaS. I think it is an important topic to discuss in this community. So welcome for taking the time, or thanks for taking the time. First of all, I want to introduce our speakers this afternoon. We have, on the one hand side, we have Carmen Cordada from Triangle, and we have Rachel Horton joining us from Bamboo Cloud. We have Johan Ademark from NAP Solutions, and Christian Lentz, who's joining us from CTM out of Germany. Before I let the speakers briefly introduce themselves, I also want to remind you about the possibility to always ask questions. So we will have, I guess, a lively discussion here with the participants in the board. But you can always ask your question. There's a Q&A window that we will monitor quite closely. And so whenever you have a question, please put it in that. And if we have then time at the end of this discussion, you can, of course, also raise your questions or your comments live into this webinar. So the topic, I think, is all about the challenges that we as partners still see when we move customers to SaaS. So it's no longer, I think, the fundamental discussion whether or not customers want or should go to software as a service, even for Dynamics 365. Is more the question, what are the challenges when doing that? And so I'm very thankful that we have Carmen, Rachel, Johan, and Christian here. And first of all, I would like to let them introduce quickly themselves so that you understand the context out of which they come with their company relative to software as a service for business applications. Maybe, Rachel, you want to start?
Yes, hello everybody. Thanks again for the invite today. Really love attending and getting involved in these sessions. It's a great opportunity for us to meet other partners, share knowledge on how we can help SMBs get the most out of Microsoft technology. I'm the head of customer engagement here at Bamboo Cloud. I've worked here now for 2 years. Prior to that, I worked for 20 years in a number of finance roles in one of the big 6 utility companies in the UK. So I bring lots of experience to conversations with clients about the pain points and frustrations with finance systems, having worked with various solutions over the years. In terms of Bamboo Cloud, we make the very best cloud technology for Microsoft simple to implement, effective and accessible to SMB organizations so they can innovate and transform. And the way that we do this is by disrupting what we call the traditional professional services by offering low cost, fixed price, fixed scope technology solutions specifically designed for SMBs. We offer fixed price products for all 3 Microsoft clouds, wrapped with managed services and sold directly to customers, all through our network of global partners.
Great.
Sorry.
Thanks, Rachel.
No problem.
Thanks. And Carmen, you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm the Director of Operations for Triangle. We are a niche consultancy only focused on Business Central in Spain. What it was a traditional NAB partner that started in 1990. We went, when I joined the company in 2016, 2017, it was when Microsoft raised the challenge of moving to the cloud. And it was a great transition point for the company. We just went all in with SaaS. We were a small partner at that moment without a lot of funding, so we couldn't really invest in keeping both businesses alive. So we just took a leap of faith and went full in for the SaaS solution.
Okay. Thanks, Carmen. And then Johan?
Thanks for having me here. Hi all, my name is Johan Ademark. I'm CEO of NAB Solutions in Sweden. I've been in this industry since Navision 1.1. I've been doing most things you can do here, writing code and being a consultant. For the past almost 15 years, I've been focusing on selling and seen this shift from traditional sales process to a more repeatable selling remote. And we've been, for a couple of years, shifting our customers from on-prem to Azure and now online. So I have some experience with this topic.
Okay, thanks, Johan. And then Christian.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Christian Lentz from CTM. My history goes back to Navision version 120 in the beginning or in the end of the 90s. I started as a financial consultant and then was educated as a developer and worked in many projects on that. Later I became a project manager, which I am now, and shifted my role a little bit to working with my internal colleagues and help them to do the shift to Business Central, AL only, and the SaaS projects. We are working for more than 250 customers here from Bremen in Germany for the northern region mainly, but we also have customers in the south of Germany and the whole country. And we're focusing on shifting our customers step by step, because we can't break the business totally up to do only cloud. We want to take care of our customers and try to help them as best as we can to do this shift.
Okay. Well, thanks for the introduction. And then lastly, myself. So I'm Michael Hartman. I'm the CEO of the QBS Group. And as probably most of you know, we are together in one holding with One Click Factory. And so we are using this opportunity to jointly discuss the challenges and probably share some of the insights that partners have in dealing with the move to Business Central or Dynamics 365 software as a service. And so one of the things, I mean, as I said in the beginning, it's not necessarily that overall customers question the value of the cloud anymore. But I do believe, and from what I hear, there are still some objections when customers think about their ERP solution or their business application. And, if they really want to move that to a software as a service model. And so what I'm really interested in is to understand a bit if you have heard these, objections from customer lately, and how do you deal with that? And maybe we can already start with you, Rachel.
Yeah, I think some of the classic objections that we see is largely around the security data and the data sovereignty. I think it's fair to say we've noticed a shift recently with many SMBs moving over to 365 already. We're already bought into the cloud now. Obviously, they're seeing the secure cloud platform and investment from Microsoft. I think since COVID, it's probably been evident that on-premise is now, in a lot of cases, seen as a bigger risk, since you don't have access to your systems and your data as easily anymore. So there's definitely been a shift recently in that. I think another objection is the process of actually moving systems and the fear of the change and the upheaval that can cause. So cost, scope creep, impact on their business, internal teams and resources, for example. So finding the right partner who's going to make that change is really important. As a partner, I think it's really important to know your why. So what's your business model, what you can and what you will do in those situations, and the expectation of the client as well, to make sure you're a really good fit. It's really, in all cases, best to understand those concerns and pain points early on so that you can address them and make sure that you're obviously entering into a successful implementation right from the very beginning. I think where One Click Factory comes in, obviously doing that lift and shift process and automating the upgrade, that's really beneficial. And we obviously do a very similar thing by working with multiple partners and providers, offering those rapid, repeatable implementations as well. So I don't think there's anything wrong with different approaches. I think it's just making sure the right process and the partner is matched to the right prospect.
Yeah. It's always hard to talk about anything positive coming out of the pandemic, but certainly the awareness, since people had to work remotely and therefore in a remote environment, in a connected environment, helped to basically shift a bit awareness, and then probably some of the objections against the cloud model. So thanks, Rachel. Khan, from your side, I know that you also are quite busy also with customers that have larger installations, or let's say very individual installation. What's your perspective on the shift to SaaS and objections?
So from our perspective, we saw that it was very smooth to transition customers that were from NAP 2015 or higher, and with up to, let's say, 300 objects modified, and the database around maximum 20 gigabytes. That was like we found those projects went smooth. We found the customer bought in very fast. We found the prices were very good price point. And the benefits of moving to the cloud were very obvious. Now, where we are finding at the moment some objections is trying to move these customers that have larger customizations, talking about maybe 800 modified objects. Their database is a bit bigger, and what we're finding is that there's still some technical limitations that they have to face. So they have to face decisions to stop working with legacy software that was before integrated directly in SQL. They have to take big decisions on whether they want to lose part of the functionality and go for a ISV. And those decisions are not easy. They have to go through big re-engineering. Not all the companies have the right people in place to do that digital transformation. So this is where we're really trying to nurture our customers, educate them, and that's where we're facing where we're focusing at the moment.
Yeah, it's and thanks, Carmen. And I think also, if I recall well, Christian, you also had customers that have more complex or sophisticated installations. So what do you see there in terms of objections or burdens?
Yes, our first approach is to cover the needs of the customer with using add-ons from ISVs. We have a catalog of about 40 add-ons, which we try to use to solve the problems that our customers have. And the ISVs are in a transition to have those add-ons cloud ready. They are more coming up in the app stores now, so that we can pick those from those catalog before we start to do customizations. But yes, we have a broad range of customers who have little customizations to a highly customized database and also big databases. So we try to analyze those installations if we can reduce the customization or do it another way. And one of the services of OneCliff Factory, the Upgrade Analyzer, is a very helpful tool on that we can have data on that we can identify the functions we have to talk about and decide with the customer whether this customization is needed or not, and what is the value of the customization. So some customers don't want to do this step in one big leap. So we're offering, okay, we can do this lift and shift perspective to just do the first step to Business Central and then to the cloud. And on this way, thinking about how to re-engineer their solution.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say, and then it's also a point in time to reprioritize or stack rank what is really needed, because we know not only we said with Carm a lot of the customizations that come with, but also some of the processes might actually not be as important anymore. But I know, in terms of these larger migrations, when we had a discussion prior, Johan, you mentioned you are also focusing now on larger migrations, but also with a bit of a, let's say, marketing objective in mind, correct?
Yeah, that's right. When we started a couple of years ago to move customers to the SaaS environment, we started with the smallest because it was easiest, and they like the concept of just paying a monthly fee and everything is solved. And now when we have some years experience, we started to move our biggest and most well-known brands, because they have the resources to evaluate the online solution and actually understand all the benefits. And we have started to move some of these customers with 100 users, maybe more. And when we have the customers with maybe 20, 50 users who might have objections, but they don't really have the resources to understand all the benefits, when we tell them that we actually move these big companies and the online version works for them, the discussion gets so much easier, because they reason, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. It's that's the evil plan, pretty much, by moving the big ones now.
But it's I think something that I'm convinced really works out well, as you say. I mean, it can't be wrong for me if it's right for the big guys. But I think one of the things, and we also have already a question more or less from Jim, I guess, which goes a bit in the same direction in terms of how many hours would we quote for an installation on-prem versus cloud. So I think if you translate that also into the margin that you make as a partner, and you compare, on-prem projects that you implement and then SaaS projects, how do you evaluate that, and how do you make sure that you basically grow, even if it is not one size or a perpetual deal where you get a lot of license revenue upfront, but over time? So how do you yield more of that service revenue when you're doing software as a service? And maybe Carmen, if you want to start there.
Yeah, great question. So also relating to the question that Jim just posted, when you ask about number of hours, first we just assume we had to reduce the hours. Didn't really know why, we just assume it has to be less. So we started quoting less hours and our margins were down. It is true that obviously the installation in the infrastructure part of the project it's simpler. So yeah, that part is true. But for the rest of the project, really, when we started charging more or less the same amount of hours for the same value, for the same customer circuits, we starting to gain more margin because we could invest in repeatability. Since the version was always updated, we didn't have to to change the training materials, to change the interface, to create packages. So first our margins went down, later they're starting to go up by investing in repeatability and focusing on the same type of customers as we did before. And also you're delivering the same value, so regardless if it's on-prem or cloud, so I don't think why we should charge less.
Yeah, I think repeatability becomes, sort of a magic bullet here. But I wonder then, repeatability and trying to standardize things as much as possible. Are there then a limitation, Christian, from your perspective, if you try to, yield more service or higher frequency of deals?
Yes, sometimes it is a challenge to standardize, because we, for example, have very broad range of customers from very many business areas. So we can focus that, for example, for the finance part, for the setup of that. So we want to be more efficient in that. We team up with a partner who is a little bit longer in the SaaS world as we are, so we can use the templates together just to bring the customer earlier to be in the position that they use the system. But I think we have to also be able to deliver the value which is fitting the needs of the customer and of every single one. So there's an individual property of our company to deliver that to the customer. And I think what Carmen said with value, if we can deliver that value, we can have the same, to see margin on the projects. Some processes are less time consuming, but some processes are stepping the next and doing the next leap with the customer together over the years. So we have the platform component, which has, for example, not so many margin, but being with the customer with everything they want to use on top in the next years is a very important perspective, I would say. And when they see the value of you, the margin is the same, I think.
Yeah, and I think you're raising a good point in terms of, the margin is the same, and arguably you could almost say that probably from a consulting perspective, there is not that much difference to start with, right? And I think that's one of the points you also mentioned, Johan, prior to that, and I think you had an interesting perspective how to use that as an advantage.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a big difference delivering on-prem or the SaaS environment. If you want to do the traditional project, you could do the template installations. We do similar things as Rachel and Bamboo are doing, where we find this repeatable way. But we also do the traditional projects, and it's just another platform. And we sell the projects as we did on-prem. But what's easier now is to add apps that already made in advance, and you just bill the customer by the hour. They used to buy apps on their phones. So I would say it's new opportunities. And if we look at our customer base, we can clearly say that our SaaS customers are more profitable than our on-prem customers. So
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, so the concern that probably many had 4, 5, maybe 10 years before to say, well, do I lose profitability, doesn't hold true in the cloud environment. And I think Rachel Bamboo also has an interesting perspective, because you're trying to basically scale, and I think it would be worthwhile to share your experience, because you're certainly yielding a lot more margin in that SaaS environment.
Yeah, that's right. We no longer offer on-premise solutions now, and we don't generally follow the traditional day rate approach. What we offer are, as I've said before, the fixed price, fixed scope packs or packages that are based on outcomes. So we generally challenge the clients and actually what they think they want, and to try to kind of really hone in on the outcomes that they're after. We're accountants, so we're using best practice within those packs to give them what we think is going to be the best out of the system for that outcome. The way that we do that is via what we call our MVP approach, so minimum viable product. What that does is it allows SMBs to start off small, so giving them the flexibility of growth in the system. So they start off by just buying the core finance packs to start with, and then over time they'll make more purchases of the additional packs, which again grows our margin as we move through that process with them. That allows us to make a much more lean sales process and be more efficient by using repeatable templates like some of the other companies do here, and the automation, which ultimately results in the project being more profitable. And we've also found that just by working with prospects, they like to work with the same partner that offers a diverse range of solutions as well. So we've also looked at the wider Power Platform, recognising the additional value that brings. So stretching our team's capabilities above NAV and BC, and that then flows into the competencies and the accolades that has as a partner, having a positive impact on your credibility. So again, working with the P2P model as well, where we offer our professional services to do the installations, configuration, training and migrating the data, along with ongoing support, that increases our recurring revenue as well. And the partner then takes the license revenue. So again, just having a couple of things there as options.
Yeah, it's interesting because you really look at it in different ways, right? In many aspects. And I think it's also fair to say, of course, in order to get more customers and have a larger margin or more frequency, depends a lot on the work that we are doing as a partner. But equally, you could say it depends a bit on the competition and how well we can differentiate against the competitors. And so I was wondering, and maybe to start with you, Christian, do you see a difference in the software as a service environment when it comes to competing and differentiating yourself?
We see it with prospects that they are very much better informed what other competitors are and what do they offer. So even when you do the approach, start small, start with finance, for example, which is highly comparable. At this point, at the first point, you have to be very unique with your offer, just to get to this first approach and get the customer on that. But you also have to point out, hey, we can be with you the whole journey you're doing with your company or with the approach using an ERP system. So what we do is we also focus on some business areas, renting and print software, for example, and the whole broad range of the rest of the business. So it's good to have experience and show that to the customer that you can be with them wherever they want to go. But it is more important to for the first step have a unique touch that you can give value to them. You have to do more effort on this point, on this first point, I think.
Interesting, yeah. And I think if I look at, I mean, you know, in the previous round, Johan, you talked about the fact that you add more apps and therefore increase the margin. Has that also an impact on you know, how you position yourself versus competitors?
Yeah, I think that it's easier to be competitive and differentiate your offer now, since we can make our unique blend of apps, and we can have a very specific offer to a specific market segment that is more competitive than maybe a partner with Business Central that try to start to sell standard and customizations, or another ERP system that is more general. So I think this gives a lot of opportunities to differentiate and compete to win.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point that you use the fact that, you know, what is now possible with applications as an advantage, and differentiate yourself with that. And I think, you know, if I look at your business, Carmen, because you said in the beginning you came from a background where you were quite specialized. So how do you see the competition now developing in your case as you move more and more of your business and the deployments to SaaS?
We see that, for example, our customers are comparing our traditional customers. They are eager since they're going to do an upgrade project, or they are more used to browsing the web. They come across ERPs that are maybe smaller, and even sometimes there's no implementation fee. Just with the license, you get a free implementation. So we get asked questions like, oh, sorry, the implementation is not included in the license. And obviously this to all of us comes as a shock, right? So we definitely have new types of conversations and a new part of the education experience. Throughout that conversation, what it's more important than ever for us is to understand what is the customer looking for? Are we a good fit for the customer? And if not, just having that conversation upfront, so that our sales cycle can be short to keep our margins.
And I think you know, when I look at Bam Boom, you know, you obviously are now moving, as you said, Rachel, into also the smaller part of the SMB segment. And there, I think the perception would be, okay, there you have a lot more competition because probably more partners would want to go into that market. So do you see that, or what is your observation in terms of competitors as you go into that market?
Yeah, I mean, we tend to, our sweet spot really is between sort of 1 to 20 users with SMB organizations. I think we can generally see competition in 3 main types. One of those being the competition from other vendors and solutions, where it becomes part of the client's decision-making process, getting a number of quotes, doing their due diligence on various products. There's also competition based on the approach and moving from on-premise to SaaS. So like we already spoke about, doing the lift and shift or the more traditional kind of scope-led projects. And then there's the internal priorities as well of the prospect that you're also in competition with, where they may have a number of projects running alongside each other all at the same time. So you're in a continuous kind of battle almost at the very beginning of the sales process, and making sure, how am I going to make sure that this is given the priority, and that we're going to kind of win this deal. I think, again, it's almost, we don't want the prospect to stand still and do nothing. We're going to make them, they've already acknowledged that they've got an issue. So, it's over time, our business model has changed. We've recognized and adapted our approach. We are now doing many smaller deals each month, rather than what we were doing a couple of years ago, which was much more larger deals. I think, not many partners take this approach, so we are in a good position in that we are different and we do tend to stand out from the rest. And we're also good at recognizing what is working and what isn't. So, really trying to take an agile approach and be aware of what you're seeing and hearing in the market, and adapting and moving all the time and learning. That's going to help you, kind of be a step ahead of the competition in all aspects.
Yeah, and it's you just mentioned, you changed the business model over time, and if I recall well, when was that, like 8-9 years back at least, when we started to do these seminars and trainings around repeatability and around the cloud. One of the common verdicts or what was said back then was, okay, if you really want to become successful in the cloud space, you have to change your business model. You have to change your sales model, and apparently your sales teams, and same holds true for consulting. You have to change that because the SaaS or cloud model is a complete different business model. And I wonder, is that really true, or what's your experience? Especially if you look back again to where we started this journey, where probably these things have been seen a bit more black and white. And maybe Christian, you wanna start?
Yes, I see many discussions in the community on this topic. There are also black and white positions, so to speak, that you completely have to build a new customer base or build a new business model or something like that. But honestly, we don't want to let our existing customers down. So we're constantly in projects. So we have to find a balance there at this point. So what we're trying to do is that some of our sales team is focusing now on SaaS only, because you have to have focus on that. That's totally clear. And what we also do is that we train our developers constantly with what we call learning sprints. So you have 3 to 5 people for 4 days, just constantly training on the new technologies, so that the leap is not so big when they have their first project on AL only or web client or something like that. That is not really in relation to SaaS, but we want to be prepared, because we think it's just too much input when you come from a CRL C-side project, from an NAV project, and now you have a BC project just to learn it in that quick time. It's just giant leap you have to do. So we constantly do a little bit of training and then assist them. That is my role at the point. And also for the whole company, for salespeople, for consultants and something like that, we do regularly, not training, but information, what is coming up from Microsoft, every release they do every 6 months, just to for them be aware of where is Microsoft heading with the product. And we look when a new project and new prospect comes in who fits to that, and then they can take it over and go ahead with it.
Okay. Yeah, and it's interesting because we have a question from Pedro here that asked about, and I think that was more to you, Johan, about the vertical solution from partners where you take apps or you try to do a lot of things and differentiate with the apps and maybe the Power Platform, and that how do you then handle the licensing issues? Dealing with all these different licensing, which in fact might also be the question around, do you have to change your sales motion and therefore also the sales go to market and maybe even up to dealing teams differently, or how do you see that?
I don't really see that the SaaS environment requires a change in the sales process. It's more what kind of projects and implementations do you want to sell? If you want to do the big customization, traditional sales, you can do that on the SaaS environment, just as you always been doing them. If you want to have a more faster sales process and go for repeatability, well, then you need to change your sales process. If you look at the licensing part, I mean, that is more, in a way, more complicated now. With the CSP licensing, the customer can buy CSP licenses from almost any partner, and yes, it's different. But over the years, I don't know, is it 7 or 10 different license models we've been selling for Dynamics NAV and Navision? So licenses is changing all the time, and I mean, CSP is probably not the final license model. In 10 years, we're going to sell something else.
Yeah.
And in our case, we try to sell the Business Central license. In some cases, we can't because we work with resellers, and they really want to sell the license as well. So let them do that. We have the apps. Some apps we do on our own, and we let our resellers sell the apps, and we give them a margin. In some cases, we sell other ISV's apps, and then we get a margin. It's pretty much the same business as before, but it's maybe handled a little bit different.
And it's interesting because that was, I think, also what you said, Rachel, that you see no issue in separating, the license sales to the implementation sales. And interestingly, or arguably, you are one of the companies or partners that were born in the cloud. So you actually started with that model. So then from your perspective, if you look back or if you compare yourself, you think there is a difference really in the way you would look at teams or the sales motion or the sales teams that you have versus the on-prem business?
I mean, we only offer SaaS implementations now. We do have a separation of teams for development, consulting, and sales, but essentially it's kind of always worked in the same way. So, like Johan says, doesn't generally change. I think what you need to be aware of, and what's more important, certainly for us, is that the prospects and our employees have the right mindset regarding digital transformation. So we run a lean sales process, as I've said, short sales cycles. That enables us to engage with more prospects and enter into more partner opportunities. for example, if a prospect's requirements are too complex or aren't open to our MVP approach, or a change in the way they previously completed an implementation, like I say, we do challenge and question why they think they might need something, because it might be that they don't, they just haven't, they're not aware of what they don't know yet. So, if they're not open to that approach, then we're not afraid to kind of walk away and just say no. We'll politely, advise them that, this isn't the opportunity for us, and we'd refer them to a more suitable partner. There's got to be an understanding, I think, between both parties of the requirements involved in the process and what really makes the implementation successful. We're very, very transparent from the beginning, knowing what we can and can't do. And, based on past experiences as well, that obviously helps us in the sales process. So, I think it's fair to say we see our role and what our role is in the wider ecosystem and the opportunities available for us, but likewise for all the other Dynamics partners in that ecosystem too. And, obviously given the stumble that some, other solution vendors have had over the last few years where, they've just not kind of kept up to date and things like that. So, yeah, it's just really about knowing and really making sure, again, about your why and what you're actually trying to achieve and making sure you've got that good match.
Yeah, focusing on what you're really good at and being clear about it.
Yeah.
I think,
transparency.
Transparent. It's probably, almost like I could call wishful thinking that people had in the beginning to separate, those two things and have complete different go-to markets. And I think, Carmen, in your case, that wasn't the case either, right? To separate the emotions. Yeah.
Yeah, from our side, as I said, we're smaller partner maybe compared to the ones in the audience today. So we really didn't have a choice or investment to start a completely new business line. We also really think that you can only have one strategy for your company unless you're, I guess, bigger. So when Microsoft made the announcement, we decided that marketing and sales were going to only sell or only create content on SaaS. And it was just good timing because we were creating that team from scratch. So that the sales and marketing side was the first one to jump. Then what happened with our technical team is that we started a lot of initiatives. We also didn't create a separate team, but we were transitioning, training one by one. We started with the more senior. And the reality there is that we run a lot of internal trainings, but it wasn't until most of our work came from BC Cloud that our developers really started to get interesting. So I would say, obviously, you do have to prepare your teams, but sales need to lead. Once you sell cloud, everything is going to move very fast. Because, for example, we were hiring new developers in 2018, and I was saying, okay, this person is only going to be trained in SaaS. Well, we had no sales. So that person had to take care of the on-prem customers. Now it's the opposite. Sometimes, even though our customer success team, for them, all customers are equal. They just take care of our customers. Sometimes, we start to forget some things about on-prem. So, and all that with the senior development team that have been working in the application for 20, 15 years. So, that's how we've experienced this change.
Okay. Yeah, so it's interesting. I think up till now, I would almost argue, one common theme that we had was that, of course, there is a change, but it's not like, you would keep things completely separate between, on-prem and SaaS. It is, as we said, in the end of the day, all about the right mindset and focusing on what you can deliver. And then it's a deployment methodology. But I think there's one key difference that, we experience these days with the SaaS model, and that comes from the fact that, vendor like Microsoft is then more constantly updating the system or the core, right? So you have to deal with more and more updates in a let's say higher frequency than probably what we used to have. And I'm really wondering, is that actually a challenge, or is that something you could see as advantage moving forward? And knowing that again, Rachel, you were coming from a perspective of starting your business with that model. How do you look at the fact that, hey, there's a constant update cycle that the vendor imposes to you and your customers?
Yeah, I mean, like Johan and his team, we encourage the use of third-party solutions and bolt-ons to the system rather than entering into the complex bespoke implementations with customizations, which obviously at every upgrade will need to be looked into. So by doing that, it ensures the customers are on the latest version, and the third party is also then responsible for ensuring their solutions are in line with those upgrades as well. I think we're in a fairly unique kind of position in the market. So given our partner-to-partner model, we work with a high number of customers, resulting in us adapting our support model and creating specific roles in the organization as well to support those upgrades. So for example, we've got a tenant guardian, which builds on our expertise in these upgrades, and he works really closely with our clients to do their upgrades with them. Our commitment to zero customization and using those extensions, often with well-established third parties, it just means it's a problem we've had to manage over time, but we're confident in our ability to do so now.
Okay. Yeah, so it is an advantage actually for you. But if I then look at as you said, Karma, you're a small team, right? Does that put you under pressure given that you are constrained with resources, or how do you look at the fact that there's constant updates in technologies?
Well, I really see this as really positive change from Microsoft, because it means the team has to keep updated, not only by internal initiatives, but they have to keep updated. Otherwise, the customer is going to have a problem, right? So yes, they obviously, you have to keep an eye on how you do customizations, because we do still customizations on Business Central Cloud. Yes, sometimes you might get an angry call if you overlooked at something, but it's also an opportunity to sell more services, because we sell maintenance for the customer customizations. We start to look more future. We look 6 months in advance. It engages on conversations with the customers. It brings the team sort of a rhythm, that it's not only imposed by us, but it's already imposed by Microsoft, and that's going to happen. And that makes it easy, for example, for me to have these cycles with my team where we review what are the changes. So I'm really grateful actually for that.
Okay, that's very interesting that you say, hey, it forces our team to keep up at a higher or faster pace with technology. Now, if you then and look at the customer side, right, and how that upgrade behavior influences a customer, what it means for customer, what is your view there, Christian, knowing that you have also customers that come from a more complex environment?
Yeah, you have to be transparent on that, and that there is no alternative. So you have to talk with the customer that the old upgrade cycles between 2, 3, or even 5 or more years are gone with this solution. So it is a discussion about what of the customizations are worth it to be re-engineered to be okay with these release cycles. But on the other hand, we have so much advantages. Some of the features that are rolling on in the major releases, we waited in the NAV world for 4 or more years, and now they are coming into the product, and it's getting so much better. You get so much more value out of the product using it, and don't have the high hurdle of the upgrade processes which we had in the past. So there's no way we keep back on that. Everything we develop, even if it is now an on-prem solution, we develop it to be cloud ready.
Yeah, it's fascinating, because I think we also see that as a trend, and the colleagues from One Click Factory also now start to offer upgrades as a service in a sense of making it a repeatable motion that we offer, so that you don't like only go to a migration project every 5 or 10 years, like you said, Christian, but basically on an ongoing basis. We also offer that capability or the capacity from the one-click factory side to make sure that every upgrade cycle is being tested, and that we can make sure that the customers are running smoothly in that new environment. And I wonder, I mean, Johan, I mean, NAB Solution, you know, you have been the partner of the year for Business Central lately on SaaS. So meaning that you also have a lot of experience now with these upgrade cycles that Microsoft is imposing. What's your take or your experience and insight on these update cycles and how they land with customers?
Well, the first times wouldn't go that good. We had some problems, but I would say the last 3 or 4 has been running very, very smooth. So right now it's we're really happy with the way it works. And from a sales perspective, I would say it's good because it takes away the blocker that you could end up in a sales process where the customer did not really want to buy until the next version was released. And that could be a year away, and a long time ago that could be like 2 years away. Now, I mean, that's not a reason to not buy now. They can buy anytime they get the latest version, and they will get upgraded. So from a sales accelerated perspective, to have these upgrades twice a year, it's perfect. So it makes sales a lot easier.
Okay.
I also would like to comment some of the questions. Pedro's question about if the customers see the value on the apps. And I would say most of the time, yes, because you have to compare the problem the customer want to have solved. You can solve it with an app, or you can solve it with consultant hours and developers. And when you compare like a time and material project and a fixed fee every month, most of the time it's quite easy to see the value, why you should go for the app. And then Peter asked about security, and that's a little bit on one of my first responses. The small customers we started with moving online, they did not ask about security. They just loved the low price, and they were happy with that. And then when you shift to larger customers, they start to ask that kind of questions that you as a salesperson really hate. And that's why we now try to move our big customers, because they have the resources to understand that Microsoft data security is a lot better than what they can accomplish on their own. So when we move the big companies, then we can go for the mid-sized companies. And when we get this data security question, we can say, this is good enough for, I'm not going to mention the names right now, but this and that big customer. And that's when they say, well, if it's good enough for them, then it's good enough for me. I can't go wrong with this.
There's it's a good perspective. There's another question from Mark. You know, how do you deal with this argument? Hey, this is expensive, right? I mean, if you add all costs and you add all the monthly fees together, it appears to be expensive when you have that on a monthly bill. So how do you deal with that? I don't know. You know,
may I answer that one as well? The way I handle this is that in the old world, you postponed a lot of costs in a future upgrade. Now you pay upfront every month. So if you do the lifetime calculation, it's actually not more expensive. It could be a lot of money, but it's not expensive.
Yeah. I usually say expensive now, cheap in the future, because and also make sure that the customer is really on board with the monthly or with the subscription model, because some customers, they were like, yes, we want to go to the cloud, but they still running internally like they want to purchase, and it's not possible. It's not going to be possible to purchase apps. It's not going to be possible to purchase license. And then they're there, they love the upgrades, they love the benefits, but they still say, but can I buy this? Why do I have to pay subscription? So that early stage, it's really important, because some customers still haven't done the mindset on maybe the people you deal with, yes, but the people that are going to approve the budget are still thinking differently, and then it becomes really a nightmare to sell apps. And then every time is, no, can you do customizations? So then you have to increase the prices of customization so that they can see the value, I guess.
Yeah.
I think if I can just add to that as well, I think I would switch that question around and turn it around to value. So not expense, but actual value. So what value are you getting from this? And really turning it back onto what their pain points and frustrations were in the first instance. So where they've got a lot of manual processes, all of that is reduced on the new system. That can link into a cost. So the benefit of actually that expense is what, again, linking it to the outcome that we know is a problem for them, because they've already told us that. So, it's really just being really clear about, yes, on, in the forefront, it might seem expensive, but what are the benefits, and what have you told us that you actually want to get as a result of this? And this is what you're going to be getting. And the return on that investment is going to be, priceless.
Yeah, I think it's good to help them shift the perspective to that is an ongoing process. Mm-hmm. It's not that big investment at some point in time. So you have an ongoing process, but what you get very early is more value out of the product right away on the whole process line, which you will be using the system.
Yeah, it's a really shift in perspective. And well, this was I think a great summary, almost like the shift of perspective when you go to SaaS. I think for customers also means that the value creation is much faster than what you have seen in the quote unquote old world, especially if you take the upfront payment that people needed to do in order to get some value out of that. Well, I think it's almost on the hour. So let me first of all thank Rachel, Carmen, Christian, Johan for being with us and share their insights and their perspective, which I think was very helpful. I also want, of course, to thank everyone that attended and also asked these good questions that I think drove the discussion into an interesting direction. Talking about direction, I hope that many of us see each other in the upcoming Directions event end of October in Milan. All of us here will be there. So if you want to deepen the discussion, you will find us at Directions in Milan. From One Click Factory and QBS perspective, we even have a booth, so you can find us there. But this is a small world, and we all know the Directions is known for the community and for seeing each other. So I'm really looking forward to see you there. Thanks again for being with us this afternoon. And I hope you have a great rest of the week, a great evening, and thanks so much for attending, and thanks so much to our participants to be on stage with me this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.